Let's do it.
Ready?
Yes. Got the game face on and...
You know this is going in the beginning. Right?
I know it's going right to the beginning. So terrible at this shit.
What is... Oh, okay. I'm Josh.
I'm Joe.
And this is episode 4 of DM Tips.
Sure.
We're talking about how to reward players for doing things out of game, sort of.
Yeah.
Or to enhance their role-playing in a way.
Yeah, basically, what we want to talk about is basically when and when not to interfere in a game that's going on, and also kind of when to help the players or reward the players at the same time.
Right. Because, I mean, you want to... I mean, at me as a DM, if someone does something really embarrassing, but it's to role-play, they're getting bonuses. For example, if they're playing a bard and they start singing, even if it's a terrible song, I mean, obviously the better songs, you're probably going to give them some credit for coming off the top of their head if that's how they're doing it. But if the party's like really stuck and there's like no way out, and they start doing something creative like that, they're going to get bonuses to help them out, or even just get a way out altogether. So in a situation where they have no way out, I would, as a GM or DM, whatever you want to call me, basically pull them out of the situation just because they did something creative.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, what you want to do is make sure that everybody has a good time. I mean, that's kind of the point. Everyone's here wasting hours of their day when they could be doing something productive. I'm just saying.
Is it wasting it, though, if they're having a good time?
No, it isn't. But don't make it feel like people are wasting their time there.
Right, yeah. Don't make them be like, hey, your shift's coming up. I'm going to need you to come in these hours. You're going to need to stay late, do some extra work, because you got to beat that boss.
Yeah. When it feels like work, that's the worst part. And that's sometimes when you, as a DM, have to intercede, especially if it's a campaign where it just feels like they've been slogging around for months and nothing is happening.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's their fault. You
need to realize as a DM when your setting or whatever you were planning on doing is just not sticking.
Yeah.
Like if you thought of this elaborate, brilliant quest that you're going to send them on, you're like, they're going to have a great time, and then maybe like a quarter of the way in, they're trudging along, going through the motions, and they're bored out of their minds. You need to basically abandon ship on that quest, and you need to basically come up with a way to pull them away from that without making it too obvious of like a knee-jerk kind of slamming on the brakes type thing. You need to do it very smoothly and elegantly. I don't really know what this has to do with what we're beginning with the show with, but whatever.
Yeah.
I guess this episode is going to be about when to use your GM powers for good.
Yes. When to use your GM powers for good is basically what it comes down to. Because, again, you don't want to feel like people are just wasting their time or going through the motions. But you have to gauge that. Sometimes you'll want to be like, I really want to get to this point, and sometimes I have fast forward. Like,
so do I. If the party has to go from one end of a continent to another, and you really don't have anything in mind on what they can do in between there, don't make them do every single day of that month-long journey. Just be like, all right, well, roll for once for encounters. If anything weird happens, if nothing happens, you just make it there, and as long as you have food, you're fine.
Yeah, you're good to go.
You can speed things up, or if they're planning something and it's not going to be a week or two in game till it comes to fruition, unless you're planning on having like stuff potentially sabotage those plans or whatever, don't make them just sit around and wait out that time. Just fast forward it. So that's one of the tools you have in your toolbox as a GM. I mean, the
fast forward button.
Yeah. You really want to make use of your tools, but not all the time. There's specialty tools that are basically the only for special occasions, I guess why they're specialty tools. But fast forward's one of them.
The scalpel, when you need to cut something out.
Yeah.
Whether it be like a side quest that's going on too long, or a character that is just completely broken, you bust out the scalpel and remove it. Or
the scalpel, by the way, is Warple. So.
Oh, is it?
So you don't even have to roll the hit with that thing half the time.
No.
just lop off their head and be done with it.
Yeah, I mean that.
Whether it's your quest or
a
player,
boss
or a player.
Yeah.
Or character, I guess I should say.
Character.
Don't go decapitating your players.
No, that would be bad. That's murder one. But maybe sometimes you run into a boss that's just way too powerful for these characters, and you need a way out of it. Maybe you say, hey, during the fight, one of you get knocked into a wall, and that loosens the wall, and now the walls come down and blocked off you from the villain that was going to massacre the entire party.
Right. Or
that's bringing in the scalpel.
Or as almost like a reminder of how powerful the guy is, or how inexperienced the party is if they're still low level. Mm-hmm. Maybe have other heroes just step in and have them save the day.
Yeah.
Understandably, your party wants to be the saviors of the day and stuff, but it's always an interesting dynamic to introduce other heroes. And like if you go from one main quest where you have to save the world to another main quest where you're trying to save the world again, you start to question, like, where the hell is everyone else doing any good in the world?
Are we talking about CW shows?
I'm not going to bring... I don't want to...
that guy over there?
I don't want to intermingle...
That guy over there that screwed
I
up the timeline?
was going to bring up Green Arrow, but...
Oh my god.
That's just pouring more salt in a very salty...
How many times can you blow up Star City?
Yeah, where's the military? I don't know. But anyway, I don't want to get off track.
But no, that is a very good question. That is something like... where are the guards?
Yes.
That's the question that, where is this vast military that's supposed to be protecting everybody? Why is it always up to us? And that's stuff that you kind of sometimes have to figure out. Like, if they're fighting in the middle of the street, I think we said in this last one, you got to make sure that, about reputation, but you also got to make sure that they don't get captured by the police. Because if you said, hey, this is a very, strict place, you can't be doing stuff, and they're shooting fireballs and magic missiles all over the place.
Yeah, I got players like that.
Yeah, you do. I don't know who he's talking about. But you say, hey, there's a grand army of the Republic here, and they don't interfere, then you have a problem with yourself.
If they're in a situation where you kind of, you stress that there needs to be some subtlety in play, and your party just goes in guns blazing, you need to remind them that there's consequences.
Yes.
So, if they're walking down the street and there's this homeless guy they start asking questions to, and they're like, okay, well, he's not giving me answers, I'm going to blow his brains out or whatever. Hundreds of people are going to hear that gunshot or that fireball blowing up or whatever the hell. Someone's going to come check it out, someone that has authority, and there's always going to be that player that thinks that they're way stronger than any authority figure.
Someone, the rules don't apply to me.
Yeah, if I've had party members where there's like 6 party members in the same setting, and the guard, a guard or 2 shows up and is like, hey, you guys are doing some suspicious shit. Come with us. We're gonna have to question you. Or, hey, we saw you do crazy shit. You're coming with us. You're under arrest. And they're like, we're just gonna resist. Unless you're in some like middle of the swamp, ogreless fucking village or whatever.
Yeah.
There's gonna be plenty of guards, and you're gonna get your ass beat.
Yeah. You need to do...
Just because you can sling fireballs doesn't mean you aren't necessarily only a fireball slinger, depending on what setting you're in.
But there's also times, especially, I mean, we're kind of going back on the punishment thing, but that is true. Like, you have tools in your toolbox where you're like, yeah, I could take on everybody. Then you do the Cobra dog pile that was in every episode of G.I. Joe, where they would just dogpile the villain because none of them could take like one random soldier. They would just dogpile them, and that's what you have to do. Like, that's kind of where your Deus Ex Machina, your
Deus Ex Machina.
If
you want to just
give up.
Call it something else. Hand of God.
Hand of God.
Hand of God is basically
fate,
the word for it.
Destiny.
But
call whatever you want.
What you could do in that situation that I was talking about is you could. Just some ideas is your guards could carry around they all wear some sort of ring that nullifies magic around them. That way, any of the crazy magic users in the party won't be like, oh, I'm just going to fireball him, or I'm going to turn invisible and run away, or something like that. Now, a rogue in that situation, or a thief or whatever, you might want to allow them to try and slip away. That's kind of what they do.
Yeah, and that's that's the also thing too is that when players play correctly in a town like that, and you have a rogue, don't punish him for doing rogue things.
Yeah,
as long as he's not like chaotic evil, which you should never have a chaotic evil rogue because he will just sell out the party to the highest bidder. You should, and this could be something we discuss later on, when and when not to use chaotic and good or evil characters, or even neutral. Because chaotic neutral is just whiny bitches. They are. I hate true neutral characters. I hate chaotic neutral characters. I'm just stand here like a fucking tree. Okay, why are you here? Why are any of us here? But if you allow them to roleplay that, then reward them for doing that. If they're neutral good and they say, hey, wait a minute, we're in this town, I shouldn't be stealing anything, that's not what I'm going to do. However, they're neutral evil and they steal things, kind of have to let them go with it till they get captured.
Again, you have to let them do what their alignment kind of sort of forces them to do, but don't punish them just for following their alignment.
Yeah.
Punish them for being
stupid,
yeah. Stupid. I mean, if they're being sloppy or stupid, if they're like, I'm going to try and pick this guy's pocket that I'm talking to in broad daylight, you can do that. I'm not going to punish you for doing that.
No, you shouldn't.
But for just being stupid and as he's talking to you, reaching into his pocket, unless you, at that point, you're at the mercy of your rolls, and if you roll poorly, you will be punished for doing something dumb.
Yeah.
If you're playing like a paladin, you're like, I must fight evil. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're fighting like 7 Draco Liches at once and you're the only man there, it's okay to run away. You're going to be punished for being stupid and thinking that good will always triumph over evil.
Good is dumb.
I mean, that's a noble thing, but you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're going to die.
But also reward them if they're playing a paladin and they do see like a crime being committed. Don't punish them. Be like, and then like 1,000 centipedes attack you out of nowhere. That are like the size of a man. Like, don't do that. That's them playing their characters. You got to know when to punish and not to punish. If they play their alignment, it's up to the dice to punish them more than you.
Right, but yeah, I mean, if a paladin's constantly worrying about if there's anyone they can rescue from like a burning building or people are trapped in cages or something like that, don't punish them for constantly worrying about that. That's what a paladin would sort of do.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I don't even know where I'm going with this, but anyway, going back to what we're talking about, hand to God, you want to very rarely use your powers as a DM.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's up to you. But from my opinion, I play as a very reactionary GM or DM, whatever. I basically have the setting there. They know what they need to do most of the time.
Yeah.
If they're struggling, hey, random NPC with some useful information will come in. If they're still struggling, then maybe this is just too difficult for them to handle, and I'll shift the quest or something like that. But other than that, they're basically left to their own vices, and if they unless they start doing something stupid or they start doing just stuff that may end up hindering the game later on, I'm not going to interfere too much. But unless if they decide to do something that I think is cool, and I don't think that they're going to be able to pull it off just with stats alone, but they start being creative about it and they actually start
working together as a team.
Teamwork's great. In fact, I was going to bring this up in maybe a house rule episode in the future, but I actually have that teamwork cup that I've introduced, where essentially there's a cup that sits in the middle of the table, there's some dice in it, and if a player rolls a check on any skill, and they fail by a very small amount, someone else at the table can elect to reach into the cup, roll a dice, and that die roll will be added to their previous failed attempt.
Right.
However, the player that rolled the initial dice cannot ask for help. It's to promote the party, recognizing that a failure was occurring among their party, and they want to help them so they can reach into the cup.
Yeah.
Now, it's like pulling teeth sometimes to get people to use that damn thing. But once it's used the first night, it kind of, the cup empties very quickly.
Yeah, like once somebody uses it, it's gone by the third encounter.
A good way to kind of mask that you are forcing your hand is make a mini game out of it sometimes. Like, you could be like, all right, well, they don't know what the fuck to do. I don't really know how to make this transition smoothly into a different plot.
Yeah.
deck of many things. Draw from that shit, and then
go from there.
And if something weird happens, there we go. That's our out. You're not gonna have to worry about this house that's being robbed. You're on another continent, or you're at the bottom of the ocean, or something like that. So,
what you want to do, like what we're talking about, the toolbox, is have things in your toolbox that'll basically be outs for you, as well as the characters in the campaign. You want some GMs I know like to tell stories, and if you get off the track of the stories, hand of God will put you right back onto that story, regardless of what. Now, I'm not always a big fan of that because sometimes it's better not to, like, I understand a lot of people are like, I'm a storyteller and I have this grand story with this big ending. Sometimes it's okay to go off book and do other things, but if you're off book for like a month and you're getting annoyed, hand to God them. But if it's like one encounter and you're like, hey, let's go.
You don't want to constantly be like, hey, I don't like what's going on, I'm changing it. Yeah. When the party made it, if the whole party made a decision to do something, you can't be like, you can't do that, do something else. You can't basically railroad them.
No, you don't.
Into what you want them to do, because then they're not really playing. They're just kind of.
You're basically reading. You're basically a theater. You're just reading lines off a script that someone has written down for you.
So.
And if you're into that kind of stuff, hey, go for it. Be a playwright. Do whatever you want. But just know that in D&D or just role playing in general, you got to give your characters and people leeway. And sometimes that leads to pretty cool things that happen. But also, everyone's got to understand, like, maybe sometimes it's better to ask a GM up front. Do you have an end to this?
It's kind of like you are the art teacher in an elementary school. That
is a perfect example
of that. Kids. You got a blank canvas and any paints you want and whatever, or if you want just clay or whatever. Let them do what they want, but if you notice some kid is painting like murder scenes with his parents being decapitated, you need to take his brush away and be like, let's do some clay molding or something. Just give him another thing to do.
And he's making the Calvin and Hobbes snowmen?
Yeah, something like that. Or, I mean, if they're just doing something that doesn't make any sense, you just want to kind of guide them towards. You have to be very aware of what is good for your party. Now, you don't have to be like, I know what's good for the party.
Yeah.
Everyone else is wrong.
Yes.
You need to let your players kind of. You need to be very fluid in your opinions, because if you need to be aware of what your party likes, and you need to sort of kind of be able to know what is good for them.
Yeah.
Now, if they really want to do something, let them do it. It's kind of like when you're young and the stove's hot and you're going to touch it, and your dad's like, "Hey, don't touch the stove. It's hot," and you're like, or shit, I burned myself, and you cry and shit, and he's like, what, are you going to touch it again? And you're like, fuck no, I'm not going to touch it. You need to let them touch the stove, rather than just saying, don't touch it, trust me.
It is kind of like...
In some situations.
Yeah, anyway. It is almost like you have to be the good parent and the bad parent at the same
but don't
time.
be like
the bully parent.
Well, don't be like a babysitter. You're not a babysitter.
No.
But you do want to kind of have them... I mean, you kind of want to be able to guess what the party likes, and also have an idea what's best for your game, also at the party in mind. So if they end up, interfering with that, you may want to hand of God it. But if what they're doing ends up working out and you didn't expect it, like, give it a chance first before. If they start arguing to you, then I mean, you need to at least have some anecdotal evidence as to why it's a bad idea sometimes. But if you have someone that argues with you when you play out a game, just fucking don't invite them back. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. No, you're going to get some bad eggs sometimes, but... Yeah,
and that's kind of part of the thing. But probably 8 times out of 10, you're not going to have that. And by the time you get to an experienced group of core, you're not going to really... I mean, you'll have arguments about stuff, but you got to try to keep it friendly. If you can. Sometimes you can't. But... just make sure that when you're using these tools, you don't abuse them. Like, we talked about punishing the characters.
Right.
I have been in campaigns where we have outright tried to kill the DM. And we've done it. It's not hard. You don't like this, do you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
We've had... Oh, this is back in college a long time ago. We had a DM that was just a dick. Just a total dick. And to give you an example, we were playing a campaign. I was playing a paladin. And I was actually getting good rolls for once. I don't get good rolls. You've been there. And I got like 20, then 2019, and 20 something else. I was just murdering this guy's entire army of orcs by myself when there's 6 other players. He hides his dice rolls behind a screen, which you do, that's fine. He was rolling 3s and 4s and saying they were 19s and 20s. And at that point, we all decided, from this point on, anytime he role plays or runs, we're going to straight out murder his campaign somehow, some way.
Okay. I was worried you were actually talking about murdering the game.
No. Again, we are just using. No, we not literally murdered the GM, but we went out of his way to basically destroy his campaigns anytime.
Right. And I've actually I know some people that do the opposite, where they were kind of elected to be the DM for a campaign. So they put together the worst move. They were like, hey, all right, you're all level 1 characters. You're suddenly being attacked by giant sandworms. They all kill you. You're dead. And then no one wants to play.
Yeah.
Or at least wants you to DM anymore. Yeah. So you can do that if you really don't want to DM. But if you don't want to DM, then I don't know why you're watching these YouTube videos. But
good luck.
What was I going to say? I don't remember.
But what you want to do is make sure that you do reward with the hand of God. Very rarely do you want to punish with the hand of God. Rewarding with the hand of God, like if your characters are down and out, but they keep fighting and they keep getting back up, and you got one character healing everybody in the party, and they're taking arrows, and you basically have them outnumbered, hand of God them. Just get them out of there. Don't massacre
don't be afraid. I mean, don't be like, the book says I have like 7 more attacks. I better use them.
Yeah.
You can be like, this one's an injured one or something like that. Because I've made campaigns where the party was supposed to fight something, and then by the time they got to it, they were all below half hit points.
Yeah.
This thing was going to kill them in 1 hit, so I had to neuter the thing. That's fine. You can do that. You're the again. Yeah. We stress this every episode that you are above God as a DM.
Yeah.
So you can do anything you want. There's no limit on what you can do.
No.
But what I was going to say is another way that I reward players and try to get them to be more involved in the setting is every once in a while I'll have NPCs ask them questions about the plot or about just the setting in general or any sort of lore. Mm-hmm. If they can answer lore-related questions, they get so many fucking bonuses because they remember shit that I've said in the past.
Yeah.
So if you can get them to recognize that this shit will matter later on and they'll be rewarded for it, they may tend to give more of a shit.
Yeah.
So
it's about continuity too. Like you don't want to wreck continuity too much.
And don't be afraid if your players call you out on your continuity, you should be thankful that they remembered it.
Yes.
There's so many times someone will be like, this happened and that happened. I'm like, okay, well, you're probably right. Because I forget like 90% of the shit that I do the previous week. Yeah. So
as a guy who role plays with you every other week, I forget like where are we? What are we doing?
Well, that's kind of your character's dynamic.
Yeah, the character I'm playing in his campaign is a changeling that basically has amnesia. That doesn't know he's a change.
He's schizophrenic, so he'll shape change into another personality in the other week.
Yeah. So
and played by someone else as well.
Yeah. So basically, what you want to do is make sure that when they role play, especially role play the characters correctly, you want to give them extra XP too if you really want to. That's another way. You can give them bonuses, but at the end of the campaign, at the end of the night, it's up to you to reward. As far as I'm concerned, it's up to you to reward XP. You can there's plenty of books here, and especially the Dungeons and Dragons will tell you, you get XP for killing this dragon. Well, if they killed the dragon and you had a wizard who basically blew all his spells, and that was done, it was like, all right, I'm going to take the wand, I'm going to attack the dragon. Give them something, man.
Yeah,
give them something.
Don't be afraid to recognize people putting in more effort. So, like, if you have a party full of, like, there's like 4 people, and 3 of them are just kind of going through the emotions, but the other guy's like, he's writing down all the quest stuff. He's coming up with all the ideas. He does most of he does the planning in the fight. He ends up doing the most damage, the most healing. He's casting all these spells and shit. And then he's also half dead by the time it's over. Or he's role-playing the shit out of this game.
Yeah.
You can give him some more XP.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong
or better loot.
And basically, you know what? That'll teach the other players to get involved.
Yeah.
It will. It will send the message. Like, well, why did I do this? Well, you sat here and played Pokemon Go the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But, yeah, I don't even know where I was going to go with it. But...
Well, what you want to do is make sure that...
I keep forgetting what I'm going to say. Who cares?
Who cares? Wasting their time. No. Honestly, the best thing you can do when you have Hand of God stuff is, if you want to, save it for the end of the campaign, or close to the end of the campaign, where you know they're going to need it. You know there's a fight that, even you as a DM, you're setting it up and going, there's a 60-40% chance I'm going to kill all the characters on the board.
Fine. That's fine to let them know that.
Well, no, don't let them know. But in your head, be like, well, if they lose one character, it's kind of near the end of the campaign. The hell with it, the characters die. That happens. If a party of 5 people go in and 2 are down, and 3 of them are at like 15% health, Hand of God, get them out of there. Because you're just going to wreck your own campaign. You're going to wreck your own story.
Or if you happen going through this huge dungeon, and by the time you make it to the end, and you're supposed to have this epic fight with this big boss, and they're all crippled by that time, don't be afraid to be like, oh, you step on a pressure plate and healing potions rain down. Just to make that fight at least not so one-sided.
Yeah.
But as far as the Hand of God stuff, the Deus Ex Machina stuff, it's a lot like alcohol.
Oh, boy. Is it?
Yes.
It is.
Because... you want to use it sparingly. Like, everything in moderation. It's fun to use it. You need to know when to use it.
Like the Eagles in Lord of the Rings.
Right. Because otherwise your party's just going to expect you to save the day for them.
Yeah.
If you end up saving them.
Yes.
Or if you railroad them, they're not going to... Everything in moderation. You want to use it sparingly so that it isn't like constantly in use. Because if you use it too much, bad things tend to happen. So that's why
very bad things.
That's why it's like alcohol.
Yes. It's also kind of a drug for you, too, if you constantly are like, well, I got all this power, and now I'm just going to abuse the hell out of it.
Yeah, don't rely on it yourself either. Don't be like, this plot's crap. All right, well, you're teleported somewhere by an evil wizard, and now you don't have to worry about it. Don't, because then you're basically descending into alcoholism, and it's sad for everyone. So
and you need an intervention by the party members.
Yeah, it's hard to have an intervention for divine intervention that you've been using too much.
But anything else? Any anecdotes about it?
Anecdotes? We could do an example of when we've used it.
Yeah.
Let me think for a minute.
All the time?
I don't want to use an example I've used before, so let me think of something else. Do you have any examples?
I've had it play out for me where this.
you sort of
the worst case.
where you reversed it on them.
Yeah, basically killing the GM. But I've had it used where we were running a campaign where it's a fighting campaign, and all your characters in role playing, went through these series of matches, sort of like WWE meets. Yeah, WWE just with real death most of the time, and. Basically, what happens at the end is that one of our characters got beaten, and that person came back and basically was super freaking powerful. Everyone kind of figured, well, how powerful can they possibly be? And it was super powerful that at the end, she ended up winning everything and not doing anything, even though me and another character fought for a good hour. And then that character just walked in, basically punched my character 2 or 3 times, and that was about it. And then everybody looked at the table and went, well, this was the worst campaign we've ever played. And my friend's like, well, you had weapons that you could have used. And I said, yeah, and then you gave her an armor class of 50, so she would just take 1 point of damage, even though I'm hitting her with 20 points of damage, or something along those. Like, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that.
Yeah. I think an example that I've used is the party was trying to find some information about some sort of witch that lived in the middle of a bog, and there's also like a small village built on like stilts on the bog and everything like that. And they were doing a shit job at looking for information and finding clues and just preparing themselves in general, because they're going after a witch that has some crazy voodoo magic stuff. Yeah. And they're just like, well, we just need to find her and punch her in the face a few times. And I'm like, okay, well, these guys are basically going to get fucked if I let them continue. So at one point I was like, all right, I made sure to mention when they first went to the bog that any sort of open flame is strictly forbidden because it's a bog and there's all these gases escaping and shit. Well, at one point some idiot, not necessarily not one of the players, there's just an NPC brought an open flame and everything just blew the fuck up, and they basically turned into them escaping this exploding, burning village before they were consumed by the flames. And I was like, well, you don't know if the witch is dead or not, but there's no way to get to her now unless you're willing to risk your life by swimming through a bog full of evil creatures and shit. And they just never went back. So it was basically like I could continue to let them to dig their own graves, or I'll just send them on to something more campaign or party appropriate. So it would have been cool to have them do it. Like I had a lot of cool stuff for them planned, but I recognized that no matter what I could have done there, it would have just been like in my head, it looked good. But what was unfolding in front of me was hard to watch. So I basically had to...
It's like communism. It looks great on paper.
I took Old Yeller out back, cocked the gun, and I basically...
and sometimes you're going to have to do that.
Swung it at a pinata, and treats came out. And
sometimes you're going to have to do that. And you're going to have to do that some days where you're just like, I know these characters aren't ready for it. So, if you have any comments, please comment below, or anything you want us to discuss.
Any suggestions for next episodes? We have some ideas, but this one struggled to stay on top because I didn't even know what I'm going to title this one.
Well, I think basically how to use your powers for good is basically it. Even though we did talk a little bit more about punishment, but you have to talk about punishment and rewards at the same time too. Always use your powers for good, kids. Always. Having said that, we'll be seeing Suicide Squad, and that review will be on Comic Book Spotlight in the next few days.
Just taking the liberty to plug your stuff on my show?
Hell yeah! You use me for my time! My time is valuable, god damn it!
Just giving shit. All right, like Joe said, just comments and stuff in the bottom there. We read every single one of them, no matter how long they are. We love that stuff. But next episode, we don't know what's going to be yet, but it'll be maybe out next week. So, but this one will be out when you're watching it. Who fucking cares?
Time is meaningless on the internet.
Yeah. So, anyway, thanks for watching.
Thanks.
See you next time.